to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Lafayette Parish. How about now? Is it working now? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Lafayette Parish School Board meeting. Please rise for a moment of silence and the presentation of the colors.
Instrumental in the whole NJRTC process as it relates to us getting a new facility. So the cadets really want to come out today and have this moment with you. We know that this is your last board meeting. We know we're going to have a new set of leaders come January, but we want to take time out to do this. So this is a pin, Como NJRTC pin logo. This was actually created by the executive officer of the union. So we wanted you to have that. Your command coin. You can take it with you, do whatever you have.
And we've also had a plaque made for you. Says Mr. Eric Nizik, Lafayette Parish School Board member, the Como High School, NJRTC, and Acadiana High, Air Force Junior RTC, Magnet Academy salute you for your vision, unyielding support, and dedicated commitment. The community, JRTC instructors, and most importantly, the cadets appreciate your efforts. Best wishes. You will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Can y'all get together?
Okay.
Good evening, school board members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, family and friends. We're here this evening to say thank you to not only the Lafayette Parish School Board, but the one member in particular that has forever embedded himself into our hearts and our JRTC family. We only become truly great when we make ourselves the servant of others. Winston Churchill said, "We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give." Mr. Eric Knizik selfless act has made a difference in the lives of hundreds of young men and women who will walk the halls of Acadiana and Como for years to come. He was the visionary who saw a struggling program and leaped into action to give it a second chance. As a result, the cadets will be able to come into a new facility that they can be proud to call home, a place that represents what more realistically depicts the facility's commonplace to the military image. Today we express our gratitude and we honor Mr. Eric Knizik as we give him his rightful place in our Hall of Heroes. We may use the term hero frequently, but there are heroes among the heroes and that they are very rare. To these units, Mr. Knizik qualifies. He is very rare. Mr. Knizik, thank you for your service and being a comrade in the arms who fought for the cadets of Acadiana and Ove Como JRTC Court. This legacy you are leaving behind will also be the legacy of all current and future cadets for years to come.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Mr. Knezik stood and watched. While others were attending schools, Mr. Knezik stood to watch. And yes, before many of us were born, Mr. Knezik stood to watch. As our families watched the storm clouds brewing on the horizons of history, Mr. Knezik stood to watch. Mr. Knezik looked ashore and saw his family, often needing his guidance. But he knew he must stay, for he had the watch. For many years, Mr. Knezik stood the watch. He stood the watch so that we and our countrymen could sleep soundly and safely, knowing that Mr. Knezik stood the watch. Today, we are here to say, the watch stands relieved. Relieved by those you have led, guided, and trained. Mr. Knezik, you, sir, stand relieved. We have the watch.
Right face. Forward march.
Thank you very much for that. Ms. Truscott, do you have any opening comments?
Yes, thank you, President Centani. Last week's release of district and school accountability results indicate that Lafayette Parish school system has maintained a B letter grade and showed a slight gain in overall district performance. Overall, 9 schools improved by an entire letter grade. Westside Elementary, Ernest Gallette Elementary, and Lafayette Middle School all made substantial improvement to earn a higher letter grade. LPSS has 5 equity honorees identified by the state and 16 labeled as top gain schools. Some notable gains for our high schools include Acadiana High School, whose graduation rate increased by 9.5%, yielding a 26-point gain in the graduation index. David Thibodeau STEM Magnet Academy also made notable gains by improving 9 points in ACT and Work Keys measures. Early College Academy recently named a National Blue Ribbon School, and that staff are in Washington, D.C. right now, and they will receive their National Blue Ribbon flag tomorrow. Maintained the highest overall school performance score at 131.9. Lafayette Parish also saw improvement in transformation zone schools, with 57% of identified zone schools demonstrating growth over the previous year. Our early childhood performance improved as well. The network as a whole achieved a high proficient rating, increasing from 5.22 to 5.28 overall. District staff has developed a leadership institute in an effort to build a pipeline of strong school leaders. Individuals from each campus who exhibit strong leadership traits have been nominated by school principals. Of the nominations, district staff will select 25 individuals to be part of Cohort 1 of the Leadership Institute. Beginning in December, these potential future leaders will take part in focused and intensive professional development opportunities that will build their capacity to lead Lafayette Parish schools in the future. District staff is also working to create a student advisory board made up of representatives from each high school to discuss and come up with possible solutions for various student concerns, one of which is bullying. Discussions will focus around incidences of bullying that are specific to particular groups of individuals. Our plan is to come back to you in February with an update on that progress. Recent feedback from parents regarding our homebound services to students has been very positive. Parents report that children are receiving excellent instruction during the periods that students are unable to attend school. Thank you to Ms. Gail Lear and her staff for doing an excellent job with students who are in our homebound program. In closing, I'd like to remind parents that the application process for magnet academies is now open. The deadline to apply is January 15th, 2020 at 11:30 p.m. Parents who want their child to be part of the lottery process for entry into a magnet academy must apply at lpssonline.com, and it's important that parents complete those applications in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trosclair. Mr. Broussard, you have a short announcement?
Thank you, Mr. President. As our quest to continue to educate our students, I would do it as well as to keep them warm and clean. So the 100 black men, Alpha Phi Alpha, along with the Lafayette Parish School Board, would be putting on a coat uniform drive on November 23rd at the Cajun Dorm from the hours of 10 to 2. I would ask any and everyone to try to help us support that effort, because many of our students is going to school without the proper clothing to stay warm or the proper clothing to keep them properly attired. So we're collecting coats and uniform along with monetary donations at the Cajun Dorm. And Ms. Hippolyte, I think we did finalize that Cajun Dorm from 10 to 2. So I would ask for your donation, your help, and your support to make that become a reality.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. At this time, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss pending litigation. We have a motion by Mr. Angel, seconded by Mr. Lachelet, that the board enter executive session to discuss pending litigation in the matter of Azadeh Miriam Yazdi versus Lafayette Parish School Board et al., civil action number 6, 18-CV-00510-RRS-CBW, Western District of Louisiana. You have any public comment on this motion? Any board member comment? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Got it. 8-4 and then against.
Motion carries. We will be back shortly.
I'd like to make a motion that we go back into regular session.
We have a motion by Mr. Latchley. Thank you very much, everyone. We have a motion by Mr. Latchley, seconded by Mr. Broussard, that the board return to regular session. Any comments from members of the public? Any comments from board members? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. For the purposes of this vote, Ms. Morris is still absent. Okay.
While we're waiting on the vote, I'd like to take a little time to thank Ms. Coyman and her class at Acadiana High. I had the privilege of speaking on Monday to her second hour class for Veterans Day, and I enjoyed it. I actually spoke continuously for 50 minutes, which I don't think would probably surprise anybody, but it was very enjoyable. Very nice class. I think it was a class of seniors. She came to the meeting tonight and brought me a folder full of handwritten thank you notes from probably the whole class. So I just wanted to take a second to thank her and her class, because I think that was above and beyond. I mean, they thanked me, shook my hand, service, the whole 9 yards, and then to come out at a board meeting and to hand this, I think this speaks volumes of your class, ma'am, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Could you stand up, Ms. Coyman? Thank you. And I will personally read every one of them and enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latchley. Very nice. The motion to return to executive session passes. We will now move on to our information items, the first of which is a recognition of Zoriel Tapo, 5th grade student at LJ Alamo. Dr. Chasson, is this the young lady that was
Yes.
the Lighthouse School at Middlebrook a couple years ago? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Miss Zoriel Tapo, a 5th grade student at LJ Alamo, has been selected to be a kid reporter for Scholastic Kids Press. She is one of 50 kids worldwide who were selected this year, and the only kid reporter in the state of Louisiana. Come on up, my baby.
Thank you, Dr. Chasson.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent Trosclair, staff, and the public. My name is Zoriel Tapo, and I'm a kid reporter with Scholastic Kids Press. As a kid reporter, it is my duty to cover important events that are happening all around Louisiana. I just covered my first event. It was on STEM Fest in New Orleans, Louisiana. In the future, I plan to cover events that really students would just be interested reading in. And I want to say thank you to everybody who supported me and all the encouragement. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ms. Tapo. We look forward to seeing you here again in a couple of years. The next item on the agenda is a presentation on the benefits of esports. Mr. Knezik.
I had the opportunity, I'm actually a student in UL. I think I've told you guys that before, but one of my professors asked me to be a guest lecturer, not as a student, but as an entrepreneur and business owner, to a seminar class of PhD students in engineering at UL. And Mr. Ian, is it Madre? Madre. Pulled me aside at the end of it, and he wanted to talk to me about the benefits of esports and asked if we had any programs. So I invited him to brief us a little bit on the benefits that he appreciates on esports. Those are electronic sports. And for those who aren't familiar, as I understand it, we're talking about like video games as a sport, because it is as I understand it from my own son, it's a lucrative field. So there you go. Thank you.
Is it showing up on there? Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll do our best since it's not showing up on here. Okay. It should be good. Well, thank you, Miss Eric, for that. Can everyone hear me now? Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's a bit hard to follow up after that, so congratulations again for that. Thank you all for having me tonight. My name is Ian Madre. I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Louisiana, or at UL. You all know. I have to go through the basic speech for this. And this is Robert Lafleur. He's the current president of our organization. So right now we're a student organization that was given the blessing by President Savoy and Dr. Ramesh Kolaru, the Vice President of Technology at the university, to kind of go and try to see what our place is in the esports world. So I'll kind of go over the national scope, the college scope, and then briefly touch upon the high school scope and what our potential future could be here in Lafayette. So I guess to start off, this past weekend actually, one of the most popular esports outside of Fortnite, I guess, is League of Legends, and so they just had a world tournament, world final on Sunday. And just through one platform, through one channel online, about 4 million people watched that event. And this wasn't even counting the U.S. audience, because it started, I think, at like 6 o'clock in the morning, or a really early time comparatively to college students, I guess. So the job market, so this is a graph from the job market that's out there in 2017. There's a lot of different companies hiring. I know Google's ramping up their hires for esports. Amazon and other STEM companies are as well. So the biggest areas right now are in California and Texas, specifically Dallas. So in terms of collegiate scholarships, those have ramped up in terms of the amount of money that these students have. There are some colleges that even offer full rides for players to just go through their entire college career fully paid off, similar to akin to what something like softball, baseball, or even football does. So that's going to grow exponentially. I think it's expected to reach, I think, about 100 million for 300 universities by 2023 for that. So in terms of like competitions, so they have the Collegiate Rocket League finals that are out in Arlington, Texas. They have a beautiful stadium out there that's funded through the Texas Rangers. And so some of these students get to compete for these finals, I think for about $10,000 worth of scholarships. The Collegiate Overwatch Finals was done through ESPN, which is another big event, another good opportunity to get scholarships as well. Teams from all over the nation get to compete in that. Then obviously League of Legends is big. Every year they have a collegiate national championship. So what we've done over here was we've worked with the Cajun Dome to host our own Fortnite event. This is the first big esports event that was in Lafayette. And it was a 2-day event. Over 200 people participated in the event. I think we had about 500 spectators for that, and it was about $10,000 pricing. For us at UL, we host a couple of small events just to try to get the community involved. Our first one last year, we had over 150 people, students, show for that event. Those are some of our competitive teams. It's just to show that esports is not confined to one game. I can skip through these. So, in terms of the opportunities for high school, I think there's a statistic out there that the kids 13 to 17 years old, about 75% of them play gaming in one way or another. Out in California, they have their Scholastic Federation that's there just to gather students and to get them using esports to get them interested in STEM field. I think I don't remember the statistic offhand, but I think it's about 50% of students that are participating in esports are either part of STEM field, at least on the collegiate end, or have some interest in joining that area. And in Dallas as well, they were able to get about 800 students involved in this area. I know in Lafayette right now, Nathan Champon at Southside High, he was able to get a good chunk of students to be involved in this area as well. I believe about 80 to 100 students through his work at David Thibodeau STEM Academy and Southside High. So he's hosting an event out in April for this. So I think for esports in general, since it's starting to build pretty significantly on a national scale, on the collegiate scale. Hopefully, it can be built on the high school level as well.
So if you've noticed, the growing trend is that over the years, as you saw on the slide, it's not so much a matter of if it's going to take over the collegiate level and even the high school level, but more when. And so one of the things that I hope to do as president at UL is pave the way and not so much play catch up to the rest of the colleges in the nation, especially with UL having a nationally recognized computer science program. I feel like we should be one of the schools to help pave the way for esports. And so we can also have that built up from the high school level as well.
Yeah, so that's pretty much all we have tonight. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next item on the agenda is the annual LSU Ag Center report. Mr. Hebert.
Good evening. Good evening. Okay. Good evening. I'm Charles Hebert with the LSU Ag Center, board president, superintendent, school board members and administration, and general public. We give our annual report of the LSU Ag Center annually. So we're here tonight. I'll introduce a couple of members from our staff that are here. 4-H agents, Victoria Dupuy and Cassie Phillips. FCS, Family and Consumer Science, you have Tiffany Williams and Jerica Boulay. And some of our county agents could not be with us this evening, but we'll go ahead and give you our highlights for the year. But we want to thank y'all as a partner within the school system for allowing us to continue the commitment within the schools that we either conduct educational programs, nutrition programs, or we do have school garden programs. But many of you may be familiar with the Cooperative Extension Service, the LSU Ag Center. We have agreements between the USDA and the state government. And here in Louisiana, we have 2 state land-grant university systems, both LSU and Southern, that are the land-grant universities, and we have staff from both of those universities that work in our office. We are a 3-way partnership. I mentioned USDA, the state land-grant universities. Many people do not realize that we are funded through Lafayette Parish School System and the Lafayette Parish Consolidated Government. So that's how we have our funding. The programs that are conducted on the agriculture and natural resource side, many of you may be familiar with a lot of our master level programs. There's a Master Cattleman, there's a Master Gardener program that we have over 350 Master Gardeners in Lafayette Parish that give hundreds of hours to outreach education, not only to the residents of Lafayette, but the surrounding parishes around Lafayette, and they're involved in programs. If you have problems with your fruit trees, people call us, they bring in soil samples, they want us to analyze their soil, tell them what's wrong with their tree. So their grass, we get these on a pretty regular basis. But if you need a soil sample, we need a pint of soil. You can deliver that to the LSU Ag Center. We're located in the parish government building downtown. And with $10, we'll send that off to the soil lab in Baton Rouge. You'll get your results emailed to your home. And then hopefully between our agriculture and natural resource agent and yourself, we can figure out what you need to add to amend your soil. The Master Gardener program, there is an annual class. There's normally about 30 participants annually that apply and go through a 12-week class that occurs at Ira Nelson Horticulture Center. It's every Thursday from mid-August through the early part of November. So the class just finished last week, so they'll be graduating next week. They have a speakers bureau, as I mentioned. They go out and educate the general public. There's a children's garden at Ira Nelson that school tours do come on, and they take kids, students, through a tour of the garden so they learn more about plants. I'll talk more about our school garden initiative as we get to the end of our presentation. There's a healer's garden. They do plant sales. And those master gardeners donate back almost 10,000 hours a year to the LSU Ag Center. Our family and consumer science agents do youth programs. They do nutrition programs in the school system, both youth, adult, and then they do conduct health fairs within the community. If there's a need, please feel free to contact our office. Then many of you are familiar with our co-curricular, non-formal, research-based 4-H program. We have a traditional 4-H program at most of the schools in Lafayette Parish. And then we have school enrichment, which we reach over 1,500 students through school gardens. The newest program we have is an embryology project, and Leo Judice is the grant recipient of that pilot program. The third grade class, Ms. Abra's class, will be raising chickens in the third grade class at the end of the school year. So we'll keep y'all up to date on how that goes it'll be this spring at the end of the school year. That'll happen late April and into May. So they will raise chicks at the end of the school, and hopefully those chicks, as they go from third to fourth grade, they can become 4-H club members next year, and they can show their chickens that they hatched in a third grade class. So they'll be the first group to do that. Both our youth and adults give back their time. There's over 11,000 hours donated either from our youth in what we call service learning, or community service was the older term. But service learning is where students choose a topic for the year. If it's cancer awareness, and they're going to focus on that and educate the general public or their club on just what happens, the process, whether it be living with cancer. We've had several schools do cancer awareness previously. They've had drives for maybe a student at their school to help their students deal with a classmate that may have cancer. This year, the state focus is children with disabilities. So we're educating the general public and our youth, especially the high school level, just how to deal with kids with disabilities. We can all fit in. Our programs are adaptable for all. And those students have something to add to our traditional students, so we can learn from each other in a safe environment where they have that opportunity. And even some of our special needs students are teaching classes for our regular students. So everyone's having that opportunity to learn. In school gardens, we do have 9 schools within the parish. They do an annual training that was held at Charles Burke this past September. We kicked off the year. Those 9 schools are, we meet each month. We do educational lessons, whether it be with child and family nutrition. We are working with the dietitian with child nutrition. They teach nutrition programs, Ms. Celeste Finney. And then some of our partners are the Lafayette Parish Master Gardeners, Farm Bureau, the Women's Foundation. Those are all partners with the School Garden program. We started a school garden cook-off, which many of you school board members have been a part of that in the past. Several principals here have been a part of that. And this year we will have the 6th annual, which will be on Saturday, February the 8th. That is set for David Thibodeau, STEM Magnet Academy on Saturday. And that program has had some special recognition. Over the past 4 years, we've had 3 school teachers from the Lafayette Parish school system be recognized as Ag in the Classroom Teacher of the Year through Farm Bureau. This past year, Miss Michelle Levis, which is here tonight from Green to Linden, was recognized and was awarded a trip to the National Ag in the Classroom Conference in Arkansas. Last year was actually Miss Paula Guidry from Leo Judice, and in 2015 was Miss Judy Morgan that was recognized from Charles Burke. So it's exciting that some of our teachers are getting that recognition for incorporating those ag in the classroom lessons with our students. And many of them in the beginning think their produce comes from the grocery store. But as they progress, Ms. Trusclair, you were at a school at Boucher and they had a garden. They realized that once they grow their own vegetables, those young students are willing to eat anything they grow. They may not like it at the beginning, but they acquire a taste and it gets better. So again, we just want to thank y'all for the opportunity to give our annual report. Each of you should have a green packet at your desk. And in there is a couple of things. One is a copy of this presentation. The second thing in there is a annual report or a profile sheet that looks like this on a summary of our programs. On the back is the number of youth and adults that we reach per program area this past year, because this runs on a fiscal year. And then the last thing you'll find in here is the state Louisiana 4-H annual report for the year 2019. So, and Miss Paula Guidry is featured in this magazine because she was Teacher of the Year this past year. But again, want to thank y'all for your continued support. Do y'all have any questions?
Mr. Hebert.
Yes, sir.
Could you remind us who won the cook-off?
Would you like to tell us?
I'll let you tell everybody who won.
It was Ridge Elementary, won the cook-off, and Mr. Lachele was a member of that team. I know that's what he wants me to say, but we appreciate all of you that have been a member of teams, and there will be another opportunity this February if you're still interested and want to come back on one of those teams of the schools that have that has a school garden at their school. They have the opportunity for 5 students, a teacher, a chef, and an elected official to cook a meal. That meal is judged at the cook-off, and then thanks to the district and the school system, Child Nutrition, they have integrated that meal one day, which is in conjunction with Farm to School Month and National Child Nutrition Week, and that meal was featured district-wide for 30,000 people in the school system. So we do appreciate y'all's support, because that's another effort that the school system and child nutrition goes through to get that meal served to everyone, but some students at one school help develop that one meal. So thank y'all.
Mr. Hebert, could you clean up the statement that you made that Mr. Lachele won a cook-off?
Mr. Broussard has won a cook-off as well, but they're both competitive dishwashers, I will tell you that.
Absolutely.
Can you let Mr. Broussard know? I think I went back to back.
Okay, well, y'all can come back this year. I know you'll have other stuff on the agenda, but thank y'all.
Mr. Santani, one quick second. Mr. Lachele, there's a gentleman that attends Alice Boucher, and his name is Timmy Chasson Jr., and he took a break this year. He called it load management. He let one of his friends take his spot because he really wanted to be in it, but he said he's going to come back again this year. He's coming out of retirement, and every year he's done it, he's won it. So, Mr. Broussard, I think we're going to be all right with Alice Boucher next year. All right.
Okay, I'm going to go into training then.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Thank you, Mr. Hebert. We appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is personnel changes for November 13th, 2019. Ms. Thibodeau, do we have any introductions? I asked that, but I do know that we have some.
Yes, Board. Superintendent Trosclair. I'd like to introduce to you the new assistant principal at David Thibodeau STEM Academy tonight, Cale Broussard. Mr. Broussard has earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from UL Lafayette and a Master of Education degree from the Louisiana State University in Shreveport. Mr. Broussard taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade social studies at Acadian Middle School and Broussard Middle School. He is coming to us from St. Martin Parish, where he was the assistant principal at Parks Middle School. Mr. Broussard has been an LEF Teacher of the Year nominee, Acadian Middle School Teacher of the Year, and Broussard Middle School Teacher of the Year. Congratulations to you, Mr. Broussard. You want to come up? And you see he has a lot of support here with his 6 children, so he's got lots of support. Congratulations.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent Trosclair. I want to take this time to thank everyone, especially my family. Please forgive them. It's bath and bedtime right now, so they are pulling it through for Daddy tonight, and I really appreciate it. They are the rock. They are the reason I am here and my purpose in life. About a year ago, I did leave Lafayette Parish. It was a very hard decision. I had received my master's in leadership, and I took a leap of faith, and I told my wife, I need to get some experience because I know something is coming my way, and my intent is to come back to Lafayette Parish. It's good to be back home. So I just want to take this time to thank previous administrators, especially Mr. John Mouton, an absolute inspiration my 4 years at Broussard Middle. He would call me in his office from time to time, and every time I'm like, oh, what did I do wrong? I'd get into his office, close the door, and he would look at me and say, okay, when are you going back for your master's for leadership? And so I can't thank him enough for truly inspiring me and pushing me, and with Leader in Me as well. As you saw this young lady, I was in charge of the Leader in Me program at Broussard Middle, Lighthouse Coordinator, and not only did it help the community and the students and the staff there, it helped me, pull the leader, pull the leader out of me and encourage me to go back for my master's. So great program. I want to say something real quick too about Miss Levis. My son Kagan Broussard was in her class, had the garden program, absolutely loved it. It has impacted him, so it's a great program. So I want to thank her for that as well. So Mr. Jeff, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. LPSS, thank y'all for giving me this opportunity and entrusting in me the ability to be a part of the David Thibodeau STEM Magna Academy family. Go Bulldogs.
Congratulations, Mr. Broussard. Next item on the agenda is the list of bids approved to be advertised by the interim superintendent. If any board members or public have any questions about bid number 44-20, the Scott Middle Cafeteria, bid 45-20, the Acadiana High School and Ovey-Como High School Junior ROTC buildings, and bid number 46-20, all-weather running tracks, please ask them now. Hearing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. Board members and public, I will read each item on the agenda. Board members, if you would like to pull an agenda item for further discussion, please say so at that time. Item number 1, request for approval of Head Start Early Head Start grant submission. Item number 2, revisions to policy JS, student fees, fines, and charges. Number 3, the 2002 half-cent sales tax fund declaration of excess reserve.
Please pull that.
Number 4, self-funded construction fund budget revision to reflect transfer from committed school sites renovations, construction, and land building acquisitions to committed school sites renovations, replacements, Prairie, Karen Crowe Heights, Lafayette High. Number 5, general fund budget revision, staff allocation formula, assistant principal. Number 6, approval of quotes for Lafayette High Phase 1 temporary aggregate driveway. Number 7, approval of quotes for Thibodeau STEM cooling tower repairs. Number 8, approval of quotes for Judy's Middle Matching Funds project digital sign. Number 9, long-term use rental of facilities by Eta Chi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Number 10, long-term use rental of facilities by the Pentecostals of Youngsville. Number 11, budget to actual reports for October 2019. Number 12, the grant fund summary for October 2019. Number 13, the sales tax collection report for September 2019. Number 14, proposal recommendation grant evaluation RFP number 32-20. Number 15, the proposal recommendation grant writing and technical assistance services RFP number 40-20. Number 16, modification of pay for substitute assistant principals and principals. Number 17, revisions to policy DCF, fund balances. Number 18, revisions to policy JGCF, behavioral health services for students. And finally, the minutes of October 9th, 2019.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve all items not pulled.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Latchley, seconded by Mr. Knezik, that the board approve all items not pulled. Members of the public, this is your opportunity to comment on any of the agenda items besides items number 3 and 19, which are the 2002 half-cent sales tax fund declaration of excess reserve and the long-term use and rental of facilities by Eta Chi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. If you are here concerning any other agenda item, now is your opportunity to speak. Seeing no public comment, do we have any board member questions or comments? Ms. Ashley, while we vote, I have a question about the sales tax report, but I'm going to call for the vote while we discuss. It's on page 4, the negative numbers for contract auditors in July and August of 2019. Just want to get a reason for the negative.
Stacy Ashley, Director of Sales Tax. The reason for the negatives is because it's from credit audits that were done for those periods that we had to issue refunds for.
So we audited companies, found they overpaid,
Correct.
issued credits.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nine for, none against.
Motion carries. The first item pulled was item number 3, the 2002 half-cent sales tax fund declaration of excess reserve. Mr. Knezik.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve for the years the 2002 sales tax fund generates an annual surplus, that at least 20% of the surplus be committed to fund an increase to the teacher salary schedule for the subsequent fiscal year.
We have a motion by Mr. Knezik, seconded by Mr. Latchley, that the board approves for the years that the 2002 sales tax fund generates an annual surplus, that at least 20% of the surplus be committed to fund an increase to the teacher salary schedule for the subsequent fiscal year. Do we have any public comment on this item? I wasn't even waving at you, but we'd love to hear from you as well. Ms. Mangum was sitting right behind you, raising her hand.
Julia Reed, LPAE President. LPAE is a member of the Blue Ribbon Tax Committee, and I guess our concern was just that this was put on the agenda without first consulting the committee. And so we just wanted to share that concern, if maybe this could be tabled, and then the committee can meet again and give our recommendation, although I know it's the board's prerogative to vote on it. But we just, as a part of the Blue Ribbon Committee, wish that we could have given our recommendation first. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Ms. Mangum?
Good evening,
Ooh, I break it already. I'm so sorry.
You good, right?
Thank you. Our concern that we have some issues with understanding the 20%. Where is the 80%?
Mr. Knezik, am I to understand that each year there's an excess reserve, we will pay out 80% of it as a bonus?
If it's so, the intent of this, and I don't want to speak out of turn if it's board member comment or just answering this question. The intent of this was to make sure that we set aside something for raises. And, I mean, we've learned by now, over 5 years, despite us making the argument that many of us feel that financially, if we put this money into a salary increase, that one is guaranteed to the staff for the rest of their career, and two, that it goes into their retirement. We have failed many times making that argument. So, I believe that we may be able to reach some sort of compromise where if we set 20% of it aside for salary every year, the other 80% can still be paid as a one-time disbursement at the end of the year. Say there's $1 million at the end of the year surplus. 200,000 goes into the salary schedule, 800,000 gets paid out. So, in essence, for people who have gotten a check and counted on that check every year for the last several years, because the economy's been good, they would get, in theory, 80% of that amount of money, and the other 20% would go into their salary for long-term benefit. So that was the intent.
Thank you for answering the question.
I certainly understand why the teachers want that. For a teacher for 999 years, I would have loved to have gotten a check once in November every year. That would be nice. But the bill that we passed was to put money into teacher salary, so Lafayette Parish would be in the top 5 in the state in salary, so we could attract and retain quality teachers. That is a huge concern to me, that we went to the public, and this is what we said we were going to do. We are now, I can't remember exactly what this year, but I think last year we were 33rd in the state. We're one of the richest parishes in the state, and our teachers are not even close to being one of the top in salary. And I have some strong feelings about that. And I think most people do that have worked on this. And I agree with you. I wish there was a way we could get teachers to understand, in the long run, putting that into their salary every year, as we promised we would do, puts
Ms.
them
Megan,
in a
may I
much
ask a
better
question,
place.
please?
Yes.
You're on the Blue Ribbon Tax Committee, yes?
Yes, I am.
Was there a discussion at this year's committee meeting of a similar structured mechanism where there would be some kind of split between the salary schedule and the bonus check?
Yes.
Can you explain that? Or do you-
What last year when we met, there's only 2 years that the teachers have gotten the salary put into the salary schedule. And it was like a 5-year difference. And Mike Hefner is who recommended, and it was passed by the committee, that so teachers would know well in advance. Last year they would get the check, that 13th, what we call the 13th check, but this year the amount would go into the salary as a permanent raise for those teachers. And if they can understand that we would have to have a catastrophic event like Katrina for it to impact the salary, or some economic downfall that we're all going to be in trouble. And one of the things we've done, I think very responsibly, is keep so much money in hold, so to speak, so in case something does happen, we can still continue to pay our teachers and have our kids in the classroom. So I think we've been responsible on that side of the bill, but we certainly have not done what we told the public we would do. And I think, and I do appreciate the idea. I'm all for compromise, coming up with some way to balance this. And believe you me, I understand the teachers wanting that money, but that's a one-time thing. I even had somebody tell me last year that if we put it in the salary, inflation would eat it up. I had no answer for that. I missed that part of Economics 101. So I would like for us to find a way to make this work in the best way possible so we keep the very best in our classrooms. And thank you for this consideration.
Well, Mr. Lachelet has a question.
Okay.
Mr. Knezik, I'd like you to just kind of think about possibly sending this to the Blue Ribbon Committee, or at least reviewing the Blue Ribbon Committee's recommendation that they evidently voted on in,
would be a
in
wonderful
September
idea.
to see if maybe that meets what you're trying to achieve. But Mr. Latchley has a question first.
Okay.
Thank you. And I seconded, Mr. Kinezic's motion so that it could be discussed, and thinking about it during the day. This might be almost better than once every 5 years for the fact of 5 times 20 is 100. So you would still be putting the same amount in the teacher's salary, maybe more, over a 5-year period, but the teachers still get the check every year. By doing it once every 5th year, the teachers would get a check for 4 years, and in the 5th year, it would go straight into salary. So this year, this way, Mr. Kinezic's idea, we don't disrupt the check, but yet 20% still goes into your salary. Is that correct, Mr. Kinezic?
Right, 20% of this year's surplus would go into next year's salary.
So it's almost a win-win. You're getting it put in your salary, plus you're still getting 80% of what you would have gotten in a check every year. And I mean, that's just.
I think it's, I like the discussion that is taking place with this. I'm not sure that 2080 turns my ziz
Right,
wheel.
Ms. Mangum, I put in there the language at least 20%. What I was trying to
At
do was set a
least.
floor, and that if the board, I turn into, this is my Cinderella night, right? So, and the response to that is I don't have another meeting. This idea came to me. I put it on the agenda
And I like
because, if I don't take action, who will, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that we at least open this discussion, move it forward. I'm not offended if we aren't ready to vote on it, but I do think it is a good solution. It meets, I think, the intent of what I've heard has come out of the Blue Ribbon Committee. And again, I'm okay with tabling it. I'm okay with voting on it. I think that setting a floor of 20% is a minimum. If the board comes in and says, hey, this year we want to increase that to 30, the board has the prerogative to do that. And you know what, this is just a policy. If it does pass, the board can always, do away with it, make it 10%. I mean, I'm just trying to put some sort of tool out there that achieves your goal, my goal, increasing the salaries long term, but also meets the needs of, the desire to have that large check if it's available.
Would you object to it going to the Blue Ribbon Committee?
No, ma'am, I have no objections to it. Again, the ideas come to me between the last meeting and this meeting. This is my only opportunity to bring it up, so.
I'd suggest before we go too much further that 2080 is not necessarily the way that we can do it. We do have to put a little bit in reserve, as Ms. Mangum was saying. We held some back so that we can make sure that we pay our teachers. Well, the way we've typically done that is we have kept in reserve the amount that we have raised their salaries. So you're talking about 40% going to salaries. At that point, it certainly could be less, but it's not going to be zero that gets put into reserve to fund these salary increases. So with that, Mr. Angel.
I have a comment, Mr. President. That is, if this exact language is, if this is going to be the exact language of the next time it comes up for a vote, I have a problem with the at least. We could pass this motion right here, and it could be 100%. It says at least 20. I think we should have some kind of an amount so that everybody knows what it's going to be.
Like a dollar amount?
Yeah. No. A percentage.
I see.
At least 20 could mean 100.
Well, certainly. That Mr. Kinezic just said that. He was trying to set a floor and just to get this started.
Well, I would suggest that we take at least out.
Okay. All right. Certainly a fine suggestion. Ms. Mangum, have you concluded your comments? We're going to move on to
Not
board
quite.
comment.
I want to thank Mr. Kinezic for offering this, and I wish I could speak for the whole teacher corps, but since I'm no longer a member here, but in spirit, I am always with this parish, and I thank you for proffering this for us to consider, and I think it would be wise to go to the Blue Ribbon Committee, since this is sort of the body that has been attached to this bill. Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. President.
Thank you, and very nice word, proffer, Ms. Mangum.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Certainly.
This can then go to the Blue Ribbon Committee.
Would you like to replace it with a different motion?
I move that this issue be taken up by the Blue Ribbon Committee for recommendation to the board. We have a motion by Mr. Kinezic, a second by Mr. Latchley, that
the 2002 half-cent sales tax fund declaration of excess reserve be taken up by the Blue Ribbon Tax Committee for recommendation to the school board. Do we have any public comment on that motion? Do we have any board member comment? Oh, Ms. Reed, please. Just under the wire.
I just want to say I support this motion. The reason I wanted it referred back to it is because the Blue Ribbon Committee had discussed a $1,000 raise in the salary schedule next year, and I just wanted to make sure that we could try to get as close to that, because 20% could be less, and I was hoping we could make it at least that 1,000 since we already recommended that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Any other public comment? Any board member comment? Mr. Hidalgo.
I could definitely support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Knezik. I know, look, we all know what you're trying to accomplish here. It's commendable. It makes sense financially. It makes sense. I'm just concerned as to who we're trying to compromise with. I mean, this is, in fact, the teachers' money, and the teachers have spoken every year. So we're trying to compromise with a group that is not interested in compromising on this. So, you know, sending it back to the Blue Ribbon Committee, I think is a good idea, only because it gives further discussion. At the end of the day, we've heard it 1,000 times, and I don't know why we keep trying to fix something that's not broken for them. So I can support sending this back to the Blue Ribbon Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Hidalgo. Mr. Knezik?
And I don't think we hear from everybody. I don't think that our polling or the people that speak here represents the entirety. Obviously, Ms. Mangum has worked in our system for a long time, and she wants to put money towards the salary increases. So again, I turn into Cinderella after tonight, but I do think that it's so much easier to talk about this money when we don't have a big pot of money ready to cut a check, right? So I encourage the board, as many of you are going to be on the board after tonight, that, you know, we address the issue and maybe set a floor for allocating a portion of this money towards salary when it's not check cutting season. So
thank you, Mr. Knezik. I suggest you review your metaphors next time. I believe you turned into a pumpkin at midnight.
Pumpkin, yeah,
not Cinderella. Are there any other board member comments?
That's good.
On this motion to refer the item to the Blue Ribbon Committee? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Nine, for, and none against.
Motion carries. The other item that was pulled for further discussion is number 9, discussion and or action concerning long-term use rental of facilities by Eta Chi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Dr. Chasson.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Dr. Chasson.
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Morrison that the board approve the long-term use rental of Live Oak Elementary School by the Eta Chi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority for several meetings from November 2019 through May 2020. Do we have any public comment on this item? Do we have any board member comment?
Yes, sir. My question is, what is it that they have access to, and is it limited to only that, or is it specified in the contract? Does anybody know?
Good evening, members of the board. Kyle Bardlawn, Director of Planning and Facilities. The applicant has requested use of the library and potentially if the members of their meeting are too numerous, which they don't expect it to be, but they would utilize the cafeteria dining area in lieu of the library.
Okay. Do they have to go into the classrooms at all?
No.
Okay. All right, that was my question.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Mr. Knezik.
And I don't know who to ask this question to, but when we approved another rental or lease with the Pentecostal group, and then we have this group, do we have loss prevention or risk management looking at indemnification agreements when are we additional insured, anything like that with these groups?
Yes, we do require a certificate of insurance, and we are named as an additional insured on their policy.
All right, thank you.
Any other board member comments or questions? Mr. Angel.
I see where it says, long-term use / rental. Do we rent it, and if so, how much?
$50 per hour.
Correct, $50 per hour for the Alpha Kappa Alpha. And on the Pentecostals of Youngsville, it's $50 per hour.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other board member comment? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Nine, for, none against.
Motion carries. This is normally the point in the meeting when I would bang the gavel and say the meeting is adjourned, but at this moment we will continue with our fairy tale theme and give Mr. Knezik one more chance at the microphone before the clock strikes midnight. So please.
Thank you. Well, tonight is my last night, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to, well, first I wanted to recognize my fellow board members, those of you, Mr. Broussard, Latchley, Santani, and Miss Morrison, for not having any opposition and choosing to serve on this board again. Congratulations on that. Mr. Hidalgo, congratulations making your runoff. Miss Morris, congratulations on you and your future and completing your term. Dr. Chasson.
Yes, sir.
I know you worked very hard. I worked with you. Congratulations on your election. But I really wanted to recognize Mr. Angel. Mr. Angel started public service when I was born. He said it many times, 1974, 45 years ago. And for a man who's been serving our community for 45 years, I thought it would, I just wanted to recognize him. Mr. Angel had 3 other opponents, and this has nothing, I'm not disparaging his opponents. I appreciate that they ran. We need good people to run. But Mr. Angel, after 45 years of public service, won all 12 of his precincts. He beat one candidate 4 votes to 1, one candidate 3 votes to 1, and the closest candidate 2.5 votes to 1. So I wanted to commend him, one, for his many, many, many decades of service, and he's going to end up, after this next term, almost 5 decades of service to our community, and congratulate him on such a profound win.
I want to thank you very much, Mr. Knezik, for those kind words, but be advised that it's not going to change my attitude. Go Army.
Yeah. And I wanted to hit just a couple things. I mean, again, we've had an opportunity to serve together. It's been tremendous. It's been a tremendous opportunity for me to remember where we started and where we are now. I wanted to highlight a couple things. You know, we started not necessarily fractured, but you know, when you go through an election, especially that election, it was heated. The us's and the thems, and now we're just, I feel like we're family. I know Dr. Chasson's about to cry. And the truth is, the very first time that, the last, not this time, but the time before that when he ran, I actually campaigned, not necessarily against him, but for his opponent. And now I know he's going to cry because we're not going to be serving together. But this board established an air of professionalism that I'm very, very proud of, and mutual respect amongst each other. Not only us, but our staff, the audience. in some other highlights, we took some time to look at our revenue stream, the sales tax office. And even though, and I'm talking to you more than them because we know the things that we did that nobody ever sees. We know the little things that we did that people don't necessarily appreciate, or the things that we did that people absolutely criticize us for, but it was the right thing to do at the time. The comprehensive rezoning, first time in over 2 decades, was so difficult for all of us, but we had the courage to do it, and it was the right thing to do, despite everybody criticizing us. It didn't matter where they lived. We've achieved $250 million in basically construction or construction allocation. When we came on this board, our insured assets basically was $1 billion. If you think about it, we have basically rebuilt a quarter of our facilities despite what the internet may say, despite raising any new taxes. And we tried to catch up for decades of neglect, but we were able to achieve $250 million roughly in construction without raising taxes. And I do want to recognize Mr. Centani, because I think we all know a lot of it was from his frugal leadership, or leadership in frugalness, and helping us find areas that we could save money. And it worked. And again, this is another one of those little things that people don't necessarily recognize, but the stuff we did with the school buses, adding GPS to school buses. I can't tell you how many times I've texted staff and said, hey, this school bus is doing this thing at this time. And why is that important? It's not important because we're tattletaling. It's important because when we first came on this board, we were uninsurable-ish. We had people that didn't want to insure us. They did not want to take our money to insure us because our liability was so high, and we addressed it. We put the How's My Driving stickers, we held drivers accountable, and we saved the taxpayers money. I am proud to say that all 4 schools in my district have new wings being built. I'm extremely proud of the board's decision to build the 2 JRTC units at our facilities. I had an opportunity to do the groundbreaking last week for the Navy and this week for the Air Force. And I can't tell you that the investment we made of a couple $1 million is going to pay this community 100, maybe 1,000-fold, in the leadership and the kids that the kids are going to learn, and the type of children that are going to come out of those programs. Also, as I move on, I hope that the board continues to nourish those programs and to realize that they do need special attention. We do have requirements by the Department of Defense to maintain at least 100 cadets in each program. When we came on this board, we were at risk of losing the naval program, and we made it a magnet academy, and we took a leadership stance, and we invested in those programs, and now they're healthy again. So as we move forward, I hope that you continue to pay attention to that. One of the biggest achievements we achieved was the SRO program. Again, contentious. Everything seems to be contentious. That's big. But it is so important. Now we can rest easy knowing that we have a police officer, an armed, trained police officer in every one of our schools, and a deterrent, a police car in front. The bad guys are going to have to really think about going in there. They're going to pick the softer target, and that's important that we took that stance. And again, it's we're battling tight budgets, but we had to allocate the money, develop the agreements to do that. But I'm very, very proud of that. One thing that people don't notice is the Love Our Schools program. I can't express to you how big of a shift that is in community support and the support of the people that are behind that program. We have literally gone a 180 through our achievements, through our leadership. I mean, they recognized that this school board was going down the right path, and they got behind us, and that is a 180 from where we started. Very, very proud of that. We took a proactive approach to address bullying, and Ms. Trosclair gave us an update on future updates that we're going to get on their plans. And we took an aggressive stance in defending the school system in litigation, where previously maybe we weren't so aggressive. Now we are aggressive. If people want to sue us for some reason, they really have to think twice about it. And that's important. Why? Because we are the stewards of the taxpayers' money, and we needed to make sure that we were the best stewards. To the JRTC group, thank you so much. I had no idea you guys were going to do this. I appreciate it very much. In the Navy, in the military, excuse me, a command coin is typically given by the commanding officer or a senior person in the command as a token of appreciation and recognition for someone's good deed or a guest. And this coin is going to sit next to a coin from my command that I was in, the Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 133, and it is going to sit next to a coin from the Navy SEAL Basic Underwater Demolition School, who was commanded by Liam Hewlin from New Iberia, who's a good friend of mine from the Naval Academy, and is also going to sit next to a coin from the Navy SEAL Development Group out of Little Creek Black Squadron, aka the SEAL Team 6 guys. And so it's in good company, and I'm very, very proud of it. And this plaque here is going to go up on my I Love Me wall. And with that, in conclusion, District 8, thank you for electing me 5 years ago. District 8 is going to be well represented by Miss Mason. She is more than qualified for this job, and I look forward to seeing her work with you on this board. I want to thank the staff, but most of all, honestly, I want to thank you guys. You know, we weren't Republicans, we weren't Democrats, we were just public servants. And I'm gonna probably cry here, but I mean, I truly appreciate. I've learned from every one of you. I've learned, passion, absolute passion, dedication, intelligence. Really thinking through things. Realizing that my idea is not always the best idea, and maybe I need to open my ears and listen to the best solution. But literally from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every one of you and what I've learned from all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knezik.
Thank you. You guys got to stop that stuff. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Pass Dr. Chasson the tissues, please.
Thank you, Mr. Knezik. At this point in time, I would accept a motion from anyone to go into executive session to handle a student expulsion appeal.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Latchley, seconded by Mr. Knezik, that the board go into executive session to handle a student expulsion appeal. Any public comment on this motion? Any board member comment on this motion? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. And as soon as this motion passes, we will bid all of you a farewell and ask that you exit the boardroom while we handle this matter. There was an error and your vote may not have been recorded.